Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Tuesday, December the 24th, 2024. Going to do something a little bit different this week, beginning today, especially since it is Christmas Eve. I'm going to share with you some devotions that Martin Luther wrote, and they're selected devotions and readings from a little book entitled Day by Day We Magnify Thee that was put together some years ago. And I'll share what Luther has to say and maybe a couple thoughts of my own in closing. The first one, intended for the morning of December the 24th, is entitled, The Word Was Made Flesh. And the scripture verse is, And she brought forth her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Luke 2, verse 7. Luther writes, Behold, how simply these things happen on earth, and yet they are so highly esteemed in heaven. On earth it happens thus. There is a poor young wife, Mary at Nazareth, thought nothing of and regarded as one of the lowliest women in the town. No one is aware of the great wonder that she bears, and she herself keeps silent, does not pride herself, and thinks that she is the lowliest woman in the town. She goes up with Joseph, her master. They probably neither manservant nor maidservant, but he is master and servant, and she is mistress and maid. Perhaps they left their homestead to look after itself, or they may have given it to a neighbor's care. And as they are thus drawing nigh to Bethlehem, the evangelist presents them to us as the most wretched and disdained of all the pilgrims, being forced to give way to everyone, till at last they are turned out into a stable and made to share shelter, table, and bedchamber with the beasts, while many a wicked man sits in the inn above and is treated like a lord. Not a soul notices and knows what God is doing in that stable. He leaves empty the manors and stately chambers, and leaves the people to their eating and drinking and their good cheer. But this comfort and great treasure remains hidden from them. Oh, what a thick black darkness was over Bethlehem then, that she failed to apprehend so great a light. How truly God shows that he has no regard for the world and its ways, and again, how the world shows that it has no regard for God, for what he is and has and does. It's interesting there's probably a lot that we would beg to differ with Luther about. Modern scholarship has helped us to see that a lot of our assumptions are probably, especially about the setting for Christmas and the birth of Jesus as described for us in Luke. It's important to remember there's 4 Gospels, and only one of them, the Gospel of Luke, tells the story of Jesus' birth. I'm going to talk about that in my sermon this evening. Another one, a second one, Matthew, doesn't talk about Jesus' birth, but talks about an event that took place sometime later, maybe a matter of weeks or months or even up to 2 years. That's the story in Matthew about the visit of the magi or wise men. I found myself saying 3, which we normally think of 3, but we only say 3 because there were 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but there's no indication here, even in Matthew, that there were 3 of the wise men. There could have been one. There was probably more than one, but there could have been more than 3. But also in Luke, the idea that that there was no room for them in the inn, that has to do with a certain translation that maybe scholars have said it's really maybe just that there was a place to stay. There was nowhere for them to stay. And when you think about it, if you're traveling to your ancestral home, that you assume that Joseph has some at least distant relatives there, that those are the people he would go to stay with. And it is these folks, how many of them, we have no idea that there might have been, may not have had any room for them. And it doesn't really say that there's a stable. It doesn't really say that there's an innkeeper. We've invented one in all our Christmas pageants. It doesn't really say that that Jesus, again, was in a stable. What's likely, and I've seen this and read this multiple times is that in first century Palestine, um, the lower level, the first level of the house off in one of the kind of in a side room would have been where they would have brought the animals in at night. The people would have lived on the second level in guest rooms or bedrooms. Maybe this is where there was no room, so Mary and Joseph are forced then to live on the ground level next to the animals, and an impromptu um, cradle would have been taking a manger and using the feeding trough. But the important thing here that Luther touches on, I think, is that the world is completely, even at that time, unaware of what God is doing. And there's nothing special about Mary. They travel, nobody knows who they are. Nobody pays much attention to them. They do nothing to call attention to themselves. And in this quiet, simple, humble way, God chooses to touch our world, to enter our world with the birth of Jesus. We'll follow up in the next couple of days with other things that Luther talks about. For now, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that you can join us for worship. We have a family service at 4 o'clock and our traditional candlelight service at 7 o'clock. And as always, both of them are going to be live streamed and recorded for later viewing. So, hope you can join us. Hope that you have a way to mark and remember this day in a significant way. Until tomorrow, take care. Bye.